Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to walk you through how to use the abstract art Photoshop action. So the way the effect works is that you open up your photo in Photoshop, you play back the action, and it will create this kind of artistic effect over your photo. So I'll show you a few more examples of the effect, and then we'll jump into Photoshop and I'll show you how to set up your file and then edit all the layers. Alright, let's jump into Photoshop. So this is the photo I'll use in the first example. I'll run through two different examples of the effect just so you get familiar with how I use all the layers. So the first thing you want to check is the size of your photo. So if you go to Image menu, go to Image Size. What you want to do is take the shortest length of your photo and increase it to anywhere between say 4,000 to 6,000 pixels. So if you open up your photo and notice that the height is say only 2,000, just take that and increase it. You don't need to worry about pixelation or a little bit of blurring of your photo because you won't see any of that in the end result. So click OK. Next, what you want to do is go to Image Mode and just check you're working in RGB color mode and 8 bits channel is selected. Next, we need to load the brushes that were included in the download. So if you hit B, or select the brush tool here and then right click anywhere of your photo, this will bring up the brushes panel. Next, click this gear icon and select import brushes, or in earlier versions of Photoshop that will be called load brushes. Click on that and then select the brushes file that was included in the download. So it will appear here in our folder. So you can click away from there. With the brush tool still selected, just make sure that your opacity is at 100%. This is turned off and flow is at 100%. Next, hit Y or select the Art History brush tool here and just make sure the style is set to dab, area to 0, tolerance to 100. Now if you're using the latest version of Photoshop, you don't need to worry about this because as the action plays back, it'll automatically set these for you. But if you're using CC 2018 or below, you'll need to manually make sure this is set up correctly before running the action. Next, what we want to do is load the action. So if you go to the Window Actions, this will open up the Actions panel to the right. Select this icon here and then click Load Actions. And then select the abstract art by Sevenstyles.atn file, and then the action will show up here in a folder. So the action that you're going to use is the abstract art action here. All these ones here you don't need to touch. So select the abstract art action and then click play, and almost instantly you'll get this message saying step 1, define the effect area. So all you need to do here is click stop, and you'll notice that the action has stopped playing back here and the brush tool selected. So what you want to do is start brushing where you want to actually apply the effect. So if I just brush, say, this area here, the end result, the effect will be applied in this area, and there'll just be a solid color background around the edge here, which you can change the color or you can turn it off to create a transparent background. Now if you want to quickly fill in your whole photo, what you can do is hold Alt backspace or Option backspace, and that will fill your entire photo with your foreground color here. Okay, so if I undo that, so you can either just use the brush tool and quickly brush over everything, or Alt backspace to quickly fill in your photo. So when you've defined your area, just click play on the action and it will resume playing back. Now this next part will take about 2 minutes to play back, and then you'll get another pop-up message. So I'll just fast forward this to get to that stage. So here is the second message that will appear, and it says step 2, define the detailed area. So again, what you want to do is just click stop, and again the brush tool is selected. So what you want to do is just brush over your photo where you want to apply the most amount of detail. So I'm just going to brush this area here. And when you've done that, again, just click play on the action and it will resume playback. So this next part will take about another 2 minutes to play back, and then the action will finish. So I'll just skip ahead to that point. So the action just finished playing back, and here is the result. So the first thing I'm going to do is just collapse this action here. So click on the arrow, and I might just hide the actions panel for the moment, get that out of the way. So the very first thing I like to do in the layer panel here is collapse all these open folders. So to do that, you just hold down Control Alt or Command Option and click on this arrow next to the folder icon, release the keys, and then reopen the folder, and everything is collapsed. So what we'll do here, we'll just start from the bottom and work our way up. So this is just your original photo that sits in the background. You don't really need to touch that one. The next layer up is the background color. So when you've run the action, you'll probably notice that it's always got areas where there's a bit of a brown tint, and that's coming from this layer here. So you can see down along the bottom here, these brown patches. So that's the background color. So you can just double click on that and just click anywhere of your photo, and you can sample a new color or use the color picker tool here. So going up, the next folder is the background paint textures folder. So if you twirl that open, there are 8 different background textures, and as I turn those off, you can see that the design updates with different textures, and you can turn them on and off. You can mix and match different ones. By default, all of them are turned on. What I might do, I'll hide this folder above. What I'll do, I actually hide everything so you can clearly see what's going on here. So I'll open that back up so you can see as I turn those off, they are different textures, and you can mix them together. So the next folder up is the photo detail paint strokes. So if I turn that folder on, so this was the area where the action stopped and it prompted you to brush on where you wanted to apply more definition to your photo. So this is the folder here that creates that definition. So if you go inside this folder, there are 6 different layers, and by default the first and the third one are on. Now if I turn them all on, you can see that it fills in that area where you wanted more detail. And so the way you can experiment with this is just turn certain layers on and off, and you'll see that it updates with a different kind of look. So by default 1 and 3 was on, but you can turn these layers on if you want to add a bit more definition into that area. So I'll hide that. So the next layer up is photo edge shadows. So if I turn this on and off, you can see that will just add in shadow detail into your design, and the one above is for the highlights. So if I turn that on, you can see that will add highlight definition into your photo. Now you don't need to use the entire area where these effects are applied. So for example, if I just turn on the shadows, let's say that let's have a look where it's. So let's say I don't want this shadow down here. What I can do is just select the mask, hit B, and that'll get the brush tool. Now I've already selected an appropriate brush tool to use with this action. So once you hit B, now if we brush black into this mask, that will hide that layer. So I've selected the mask, black is my active color, and if you want to increase the brush size, just use the left and right square brackets on the keyboard so you can see it happening there. Now if I start brushing, you'll see that shadow disappears. So you don't have to use the entire area. You can brush away areas that you don't want. Now if you want to preview this layer again without the mask, you hold down Shift and click on the mask, and you'll see a big red X appears to it. Now if I just click on that mask again, it will hide it. So that way you can quickly preview areas where this layer is affecting. Now if let's say I wanted to reveal this section again, what I can do is just change this to white, or if you hit X on the keyboard, this will flip between black and white. So I will just make white my active color, make sure the mask is selected, and I'll start brushing to bring that back. Okay, now hit X again, I can remove it there. So the same with the highlights. Let's just say that I want highlights around this area of her face, so I can select the mask, make sure black is active, and I can just brush that away. Okay, another tip here is that if you select the mask, what you could do is fill the entire mask in black. So to do that, we can make sure black is our active color. So hit X a few times, make sure black is active. Now, if you hit Alt or Option Backspace, that will fill the mask in completely black. So everything's hidden. So if I now switch to white and start brushing the mask, I can brush on that area where I want the highlights to appear. Okay, so, and now if you want to preview the mask, you can hold down Alt or Option and click on the mask, and you can see that that's the area where this layer is going to be visible. So I can click away there. Okay, next layer up is Reveal Original Photo. So by default that is on, but you can see that the mask is all black, so it's completely hidden. So if you hold down Shift just to temporarily hide that mask, you'll see all it is, it's your original photo. Now I've applied just a little bit of a artistic effect to it, so it'll help blend in with your design a little bit more if you decide to use this layer. Now, the way I like to use this layer is that sometimes there will be areas of your design where you just want to add a little bit more realism to it. So that's particularly true with sort of facial features. You might want to add a little more detail to the eyes or to the lips. So I've just selected the mask here. Make sure white is my active color. Now, if I start brushing on this mask, it will reveal that original photo. So the way I like to work with this is just brush little details. So I'm just clicking a couple times on the eyes, on the lips here. And you might also find that there's areas, so you can see on the nose here how there's patches. Let's say that I didn't want those patches. I could just brush those away. Just like that. You don't want to brush too much because then the blend between the artistic effect and your original photo is too obvious. So I'll undo that. And just do a few clicks in the area. And if you want to undo it, you remember just click it to black, hit X on the keyboard, and that will brush, that'll undo it. So the next folder up is paint swipes. Now by default this is turned off, but if you turn it on, you'll see that it creates these horizontal and vertical paint strokes. So you can twirl open the folder and you can see there are 10 different layers, so you can grab those and individually move them around. Or if you hold down Alt, you can duplicate it. Alt and drag up, that will duplicate the layer. I've created this hue and saturation adjustment layer, so you can double click on that and play around with sort of offsetting the colors a little bit. Okay, now the next folder up is paint drips. So again, by default that's turned off. So if you turn that on, it will apply paint drips across your entire image. Now the way I like to use this is I take a look where the drips appear, and I decide what areas where I want them to appear. I don't want to apply it to my entire photo. So for example, maybe I just want a few drips here. So what I like to do is, firstly, I'll fill this mask in completely black. So I'll hide everything. So make sure black is my active color by hitting X a few times. And if I select the mask and hit Alt or Option Backspace, that will hide all the paint drips. Now what I like to do is then I hold down Shift on the mask, click, so now I can temporarily get a glimpse of the folder without the mask hiding it. And let's say I want to reveal these drips up here. So I'll just click on the mask again, hit B, make sure white is my active color because I want to reveal what's inside this folder. I'll select the mask and I'll start brushing up here. So you can see that the paint drips will just appear here. So if I want to take another look at all the paint drips, hold down Shift, click on it, and I'll take a look around. Maybe I like this area down the bottom here. So I'll start brushing white down here. Take another look. Maybe a bit up the top here, a bit here, and a bit down here. So the next folder up is called Highlight Detail. And again, this is another layer that controls the visibility of the highlights in your photo. So you can turn that on and off to preview that. Now, you don't need to apply this to your entire image. You can turn it on and off, and maybe there's an area where, let's say, I don't want it to appear in this top left-hand corner. So I'll hit B, hit X to make sure black is active because I want to hide what's ever inside this folder. And I will just start brushing up here, and you can see that it hides that area. So I can just turn it off again, take a look around, maybe this area down here. I don't want white to appear there, so I'll just brush that away. So you just want to be creative with how you use this layer. And the same for the folder above. It is called Shadow Detail. So I'll turn that on, and that will again give you more control over the shadows in your design. But I'm actually liking it with it off completely. Maybe I'll keep it on a little bit here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the mask. I'm going to hit control. Another way to quickly flip this to black to hide everything is just to select it and hit Control or Command I, and that will invert the color. So it's gone from white to black. So everything's hidden. Now I'm just going to brush, make sure white is active, and I'm going to start brushing here. So I'm going to reveal this area down here just a little bit. Okay. Next one up is the color options. So by default, I have created 30 color options for you. And the way these work is that you just turn on the visibility for that folder, and it will apply a different effect. So let me just find one here. Now what I also like to do here is, if you just click on the folder, you notice I've got the opacity set to 70% across all of these. So if you just click and hold on that word opacity and drag, that will adjust the opacity of that folder. So you can see there's 100%, there's 0. So sometimes I don't want to use the entire, I don't want to use full opacity for that color option. I might just want to use, say, let's use around 40% for this one. And then I'll preview mixing it with other color options. So I'll just turn on, so maybe I want to use a little bit of this. So I'll just drag that. I usually drag the opacity down to 0, and then I slowly drag it to the right to see how that color affects the design. And then I'll just turn it on and off so I can quickly preview that. Maybe it's a bit too strong. Another way to quickly adjust the opacity is if you click the folder and just if you hit numbers on the keyboard, if I hit 1, that will change it to 10%. If you hit 5, 50%. So I might just use that at 10%. Okay, so you can just preview all those and mix them if you want. This layer here, use original photo colors. If you turn this on, this will overlay the original photo colors over your entire design. Okay, and again, you can be selective where you want that to appear with the mask. So if you wanted say her face to have all the true colors of the original photo, I could invert that mask to hide it all, and then brush white into that to reveal the original photo colors in this area. But I prefer it without it for this this example, so I'll leave that. So this layer here, overall contrast. So by default that's on, and I've applied just a little bit of contrast to it. You'll notice in some layers and folders I've got in brackets opacity. So I'm basically telling you with this layer or folder you can experiment with the opacity of it. So at the moment this is set to 10%. So when I increase that, you'll notice it's adding a lot more contrast to the image. So you can experiment with that. This layer here is overall brightness. You can double click on this and adjust these handles here if you want to experiment with the brightness. Overall color saturation, you can double click on this, and if you want to add more color saturation, you can do that with this handle, or decrease the color saturation. Okay, so let's experiment a little bit more with these layers and see how we can further customize the result. So what I might check first is I might hide the detail paint strokes folder and see how that affects the design. So what I'm looking for here is like little sections that might look cool if I hide them from this folder. So I like this little red spot here, and maybe this little blue section here, this little blue along her glasses. So what I might do is I might just invert the mask. So select the mask, hit Control I. Okay, so that's hidden everything. So what I can do now, if I just select the mask, make sure white is my active color, I can start brushing everywhere except for those little areas that I wanted to keep. So around here. So now if I turn this folder on and off, you can see that it's keeping this section here. Okay, now what I might do is experiment with moving these drips up higher, so that should increase the visibility. Now all I'm doing is previewing to see if I like that or not. So another way to move the folder up and down the layer order using shortcuts is hold down Control or Command and use the left or right square brackets on the keyboard. So you can see left square bracket will move it down the layer order and right up. So as you move it down, you'll see that the appearance can change. So you can experiment with that. But I might just keep it where it is. Next, what I might do is jump back down to the background paint textures folder, and I'll go inside here. I might just preview the design again, just turning some of these on and off and seeing if there's a different direction that I prefer. So I don't mind this look here. Obviously I might want to hide this area around here. I might preview it with, so what I might do, I might just keep it like this, and I'm going to select this mask. I just want to see that's, so if I turn that layer on and off, you can see it's creating these two areas which I don't really want. So I'm just going to select the mask for this layer, make sure black is my active color, so I'll hit X, and I'm just going to brush black onto the mask to hide that area. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's turn some of these off, see if there's another look. No, I think we'll just keep it like that. And what I might do, I'll go back to the highlight detail and I might experiment with just lowering this opacity down a bit. So it'll create a bit more definition up the top there. More paint stroke definition. Alright, I think that's looking pretty good. Next, what I might do is overlay a very subtle canvas texture over the entire photo. So to do that, you can go to File, Place Embedded, and in the download there is a canvas texture.jpg. So you can double click on that, and that will then be loaded into the design. So once it's been placed, you hit Enter to confirm the location. Now you can see that it's placed it down the halfway down the layer panel here. So what I want to do is just drag it up to the top so it sits over the top of everything. And I'm going to hit Control or Command T to adjust the scale, and holding down Alt or Option as we scale up. I just want to fill the entire photo, hit Enter to confirm. Now if I zoom all the way in, so if you want to zoom all the way into your photo, hit Control Option 0 or Control Alt 0 or Command Option 0, zoom all the way in. Now I can set the blend mode of this to overlay, so you can see that this canvas texture is now blending with our design. So what you want to do here is now experiment with the opacity. So I'll put this to 0, and I can click, hold and drag the word opacity here and slowly increase that, and you can just see the canvas texture starting to come through. So let's just add just a little bit, about 36%, that looks pretty good. Now to zoom all the way back out, you can hit Control or Command 0, and there you go. So that canvas texture is optional. It just adds a little bit of detail, and you can also play around with the blend modes as well. Might prefer soft light. You can see overlay adds a bit more contrast to the design. So let's just leave it with overlay. So the last thing I like to play around with is if under the filter menu is a camera raw filter. So here you can sort of experiment with further adjusting the colors in your design, the contrast, adding some vignetting effects, some grain effects, etc. So the way to use this is, what you want to do is select the abstract art folder, and we want to merge everything we see here onto one layer. So to do that, you hold down Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E, and what that will do, it will merge everything that's visible onto one layer. So now what I can do is go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and this will bring up the Camera Raw interface. So I won't go through everything here. I'll just click through the things that I like to use to add some final touches to the design. So I'll click on presets here, and there's a bunch of things you can experiment with here. There's some like contrast presets. There's some additional color options you can play around with. There are some black and white presets here to experiment with. But the ones I like to add, I just like to add a little bit of grain. So I usually select light grain and medium sharpening. And also like to take a look at some vignetting effects as well. So you can see what that's doing. So I might just add heavy to this one. And I like to click back to the basic tab here and add a little bit of clarity. So I'll just exaggerate this to show. So as I increase the clarity, you can see that it adds that kind of effect. You can decrease the clarity, but I usually like to add about 5. And texture, you can see what that's doing there. So texture, I like to add about 3 or so to that. You can also experiment with reducing, say if the highlights in your photo are too strong, you can sort of flatten out those highlights a bit. So you can see what that's doing. Same with the shadows. You can lighten up the shadows. So there's a lot of control here in the Camera Raw filter, but I'll just keep this pretty basic. So I will click OK. Alright, so you can see that if I make adjustments now to any of these folders below, you won't see anything happening because we've merged everything onto one layer here, and that's where we've applied some of the Camera Raw filter effects. But say you want to undo that and you want to try again, you want to experiment with some new effects with Camera Raw, you can just delete that layer, merge everything visible again, so Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E, and then you can go back and excuse me, you can go back into the Camera Raw filter. But I'll undo that. Now something else I'll point out, another little tip with Camera Raw filter. Let's say I want to experiment with another effect added on top of this. So what I can do, I can, let's hide this layer and let's merge everything visible again. So I'll move this up the top. Alright, so I'll turn that back on. So let's go back into the Camera Raw filter again. And let's just say that I wanted to experiment with adding vivid to the design. Let's say I don't want, I kind of like that effect, but I don't want to use all of it. I just want to use a little bit of what I'm seeing here. So I'm just going to click OK. All right. So what you can do then is you can hold down Control Shift F or Command Shift F, and that'll bring up this fade panel. So this will allow us to fade between, so 100% is the complete Camera Raw effect that we just applied. 0 would completely remove it. So you can use this slider to create a blend between what we just applied and basically the before and after. So let's just say I want just a little bit of what we just applied, say 50%, click OK. So if I hide this layer here, you can see the before and after. What you could also do is then create, you can put a mask on this top layer and start brushing. So I might invert that mask, sort of hide everything, and I'll just preview it on and off. So maybe there's just areas of this layer that you want to keep. You don't want to use the entire layer. Let's just use some areas. So maybe we want to add a bit more vibrancy to this area of her face here. So I'll select the mask, make sure white is active, and I'll start brushing. And it's very, very subtle, but you can see the effect being applied there. I'll turn it on and off. Maybe the opacity is a little bit too strong. Okay. Lastly, before moving on to the next example, if you don't want to use the Camera Raw filter to add sharpening, I've included this action here called Sharpen Result. So you can just select that and click play, and what that will do, that will just create a layer up the top here which adds sharpening to your photo, and you can experiment with the opacity here to increase or decrease the amount of sharpening. So let's check out the before and after. So I'm just going to group, hold down Shift, select these, hit Control or Command G to group everything. And then I can zoom back out. So there's the before and after. Alright, let's move on to the next example. Alright, so here's the next photo I'm going to use. So the first thing I'm going to do is just check the size of this image. So that is a good size. So again, just take the shortest length of your document and increase that to anywhere between 4,000 to 6,000 pixels. You'd of course go lower, say between 3,000 and 4,000, but you'll get better results in 4,000 to 6,000 pixel range. Click OK. I'm just going to hit B on the keyboard and just ensure my brush opacity is at 100%, flow is at 100%, so that's all looking good. I'm going to 12 open the actions panel here. Again, if you don't have it, you can just go to Window Actions, and that will appear here. So I'm going to 12 open the folder, select Abstract Art and click Play. Now, step one is we need to define the area of the effect. So this time, rather than filling in my entire photo, I'm just going to brush a little bit. So we're just going to use this area. Okay, now I'm going to click play and I'll just skip ahead to the next message that pops up. Alright, so here's the next step of brushing on the area where we want to add more definition. So I'll click stop here and the brush is already selected and I'm just going to brush over this section here. I think that'll do. And then click play and I'll skip ahead to the end result. Okay, so here's the result. Now I'll just collapse the actions panel and let's collapse all these folders. So having the top folder selected, hold down Control, Alt or Command Option, click on this arrow, release the keys and 12 open the folder again. Everything is collapsed. So let's start off with checking out the photo detail folder. I'm going to turn that on and off, see how that's looking. So I might just keep it on and I'll 12 open the folder and let's add a couple more of these layers and see how that affects things. So I don't mind that, but I don't really want these extra paint strokes around the edge here. So I'm just going to select the folder mask here. I'm going to hit B, make black my active color because I want to hide whatever's inside this folder. So I'm going to brush that away. Next, what I might do is I might select the reveal original photo mask and I'm going to make white my active color because I want to reveal some of this layer. I'm just going to brush around the edge here to give a bit more definition to the edge of the bird, just like that. Okay, next I'm going to turn on the paint swipes and check that out. So I don't mind that, just adds a few little paint swipes which add a little bit of detail. Next, the paint drips. Let's check that out. Now, what I might do, I'm just going to hold down Shift to disable this mask, and I might move it up higher. So let's have a look around where we could add some drips. So I might just add this one down the bottom here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select the mask, and I'm going to fill it in completely black. So I'm going to make sure black is my active color. Hit X. Select the mask, hold down Alt or Option Backspace, and that will fill in the mask with your active color. Now hitting B, make sure white is my active color because now I want to reveal what's inside this folder. And I'm just going to increase the size of the brush. So I'm just going to brush on some. I'm just going to hold down Shift, preview where the paint strokes, the paint strips are again. I don't think we need to add any more. I think maybe just a few down the bottom here. And what you can also do is jump inside this folder. There's all the paint drips on individual layers. You can turn a bunch off, and I just want to have a few down the bottom here. And I might just hide this. Just brush a little bit away there. So just a few paint strokes. So I'm going to collapse that. Now let's go back down the bottom here and let's experiment with turning these two on and off and see how that affects the design. So I actually don't mind it with without it in this section, but I prefer it with it up the top here. So excuse me, I'm going to select the mask again. I'm going to fill it in completely black, so Alt or Option Backspace. Now I'm going to hit B, make sure white is active because I want to reveal what's on this layer. I'm just going to reveal this section up here. So let's now turn on the photo shadows and see what that looks like. Don't think we need this layer on. I prefer it without, so we'll leave that off. So now let's go down into the background paint textures folder and let's turn some of these on and off and see what we get. Now I might just keep it how it is. Another thing you can experiment with is creating adjustment layers inside this folder. So you can hit this icon down the bottom here, and maybe you want to experiment with a bit of hue and saturation, so you can add that and then play around with the hue slider here. Actually, what I might do is, you can see how it's affecting the background layer. So what I might do is select this folder and change the blend mode here to normal. So this way, this hue and saturation won't affect the layers outside of the folder. Okay, so now when I change this, it will just adjust the textures. So maybe just add a bit more of a yellow tint, and you can also experiment with, like, you know, putting in a levels adjustment layer and adding more brightness to textures in here. I might just add just a little bit. Something else I'd like to do is copying some of these layers here. So I'll just grab this first one and moving them to the top of the layer order. So if I hold down Alt or Option, click and drag, that'll make a copy, and I'll move that up the top there. What you can see it's done, it's put some of those paint strokes over the top of everything. So what I can do, I can look around the design, and maybe there's a few, you know, there's areas of this that I want to keep. And perhaps it's not that texture, and I'll just, you know, I'll grab another one, I'll bring that to the top, and I'll take a look around. So just for example, maybe I want just a few of these down the bottom here. So I'm going to select the mask, hit Control or Command I to flip that to black so it hides everything, and then I can just brush on, you know, some of that texture down here. Now I can hold down Shift on this mask to preview it again. And maybe there's, like, you know, a bit of a section down here. I've always got my finger, as I'm brushing on these masks, I've always got my finger on X, which flips between revealing and hiding elements of this mask. So I can quickly just, you know, brush on and off as I click around. Okay, so you can experiment with that. Let's drag another one to the top, have a look. Just going to invert this mask. Let's have a preview. So maybe this bit of yellow looked kind of cool down the bottom here. Alright, let's leave it there. Next, what I might quickly check is I might select the paint swipes folder, only hit Control or Command J to duplicate that. And let's see if we can increase the visibility of that a bit. So what I might do, I'll undo that and I will duplicate this folder again, Command or Control J. I'm going to hide this bottom one. Then I'm going to flatten this entire folder, Control or Command E. Alright, so now I've just got it on one layer. Now I'm going to hit Control J or Command J a few times, and you'll see as I do that, the visibility of those paint strokes, those swipes increase. So I've just created a bunch of layers here. I'll hold down Shift, select all those, hit Control, Command E, I'll flatten those again. Now I can hit Control J again, and that'll make it even more visible. So now let's have a look. I'll just flatten those again. I'm going to apply a mask to this layer, hitting this icon here. Next, I'm just going to brush away any strokes that are probably a bit too prominent. So I might just brush away a little bit there. And you can also experiment with adjusting the color of these. So I can create an adjustment layer. Okay, and you can see that's put that above our paint swipes layer. Now, what you'll notice, if I double click on this and play around with this hue slider, it's affecting the entire design, but I just want to affect this layer below. So to clip it to the layer below so it only affects this layer, select the hue and saturation adjustment layer, hold down Alt or Option, and move your mouse in between the two layers. And you can see that it turns to the icon of a square and arrow. Click that and you'll see that it's clipping to the layer below. So this will now only affect the layer below. So now when I adjust this, you can see that the colors of the swipes are only changing. So let's go for something, let's go for a bit of a green. Actually, do something like that. Alright, next what I'm going to do is, let's check out the original photo. I might see if I can, let's add a little bit more realism back into the eyes here. So I'm just going to click once with a white brush in the mask there. So you can see as I did that, I'll undo that. It just added a little bit of a highlight to the eyes, because if I hide the mask, there's quite a lot of highlights that flow throughout the bird, but one of them, you know, I want to add this, a lot more definition to this area here. So maybe let's brush one more here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's jump to the background layer and let's check out some different colors here. Let's maybe go for a bit of a lighter tone. Alright, let's jump into the color options and let's turn on some of these. That looks pretty good, but I'm just going to lower the opacity of that a little bit, and let's check some other color options. That blue looks pretty nice, but let's check it with a lower opacity. That'll do. Alright. So now, actually the color of those swipes are bothering me a bit, so I might turn this back to there. Alright, now what I want to do is add some final touches. Now, actually before I do that, if you want to have a transparent background, all you need to do is turn off these bottom three layers, and you'll see now your design is sitting on a transparent background. So you can export this as a PNG, and yeah, you have a transparent background. So next, let's play around with the camera raw filter. So I'm going to select the top folder. So merge visible. So Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E. So our design is on one layer. And let's go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And let's jump to the presets. Let's add a little bit of grain, medium sharpening. I won't add a vignette. Let's have a look at some of these options here. Check some of these color options. I think we'll just leave it as is, but I'm going to jump back to here. Let's add a little bit of clarity, 5, a little bit of texture. Let's try increase the vibrance. Let's see how that looks. I'll click OK, and let's check the before and after. Alright, okay, that covers how to use the abstract art action. I'll put some links down below to some other artistic effects that you might be interested in checking out. And you can also combine effects simply by saving out your design. So I'll close this. I've already saved this out as a JPEG, so I'm just going to open it. Control O. So once you've completed your design, you save it out, you reopen your photo. So now I've just got one layer. So now what I can do is actually load up another action and then play that action over the top of this effect, and then I can use layer masks and combine those two effects together. So there's a lot of flexibility to build on top of this look with other actions. So I hope you enjoy using the effect, and if you need any help with the action, you'll find a link to my support page in the README file, which is included in the download. Thanks.